The first time Samuel Hayes heard her voice again, it wasn't soft like he remembered. It was wind-burned, cracked, and trembling with winter. "Please, buy me. Make me your wife." The words drifted across the snow-dusted courtyard of the Whitlock mansion like something pulled from a fever dream. Samuel froze mid-step, one boot planted on the icy stone, the other hanging in the air. The sun was sinking behind the ridge, casting long amber shadows across the yard. And there she was, Emma Whitlock, kneeling at the Rotaran gate, hands clasped together as though praying to a god she no longer believed listened to her. But let's go back to where it all started, before the begging, before the ruin, before she ever learned that wealth could rot a soul from the inside out. Back when her voice still carried sweetness, instead of regret. 2 years earlier, the town of Copper Valley was a rough little vein of life carved into the Wyoming desert. The wind there didn't just blow, it stayed. It clung to coats, rattled porchboards, and carried the smell of sage across miles of untouched land. Samuel had a ranch 5 miles south of town, a spread built by his father's hands and saved by Samuel's stubbornness. He lived simple, always had, a quiet man, soft-spoken, carrying the kind of strength that didn't need proving. Emma liked that about him once. She used to appear at the fence line, in her blue calico dress, hair braided down her back, carrying a basket of biscuits her mother never baked. Samuel always pretended not to notice they were too soft, too warm, too made by Emma to be anything but a secret offering. "Morning, Sam," she'd say, voice bright as spring water, and he'd tip his hat, cheeks warming beneath his stubble. "Morning, Miss Emma." Back then her smile was a promise. Back then he thought the world was taking its time with them for a reason. But the world has a habit of speeding up when money arrives. Elias Whitlock came through Copper Valley with a 10-horse carriage, a traveling entourage, and enough silver cufflinks to blind a man at sunrise. He wanted land, he wanted cattle, he wanted status. Most of all, he wanted Emma, and he didn't bother hiding it. Her father approved that, her mother glowed. Her neighbors whispered that being chosen by Whitlock was like being plucked from dirt and set among stars. Samuel said nothing. Not once. Not even when Emma stopped visiting the fence line. Not even when she avoided his eyes in church. Not even when she walked past him in a pale silk dress that rustled like a goodbye. She didn't want to speak aloud. He stood in the back pew and watched her marry Elias Whitlock on a summer morning so hot the preacher had to wipe sweat from the Bible. When she kissed her new husband, Samuel felt something inside him turn out loud, but deep he told himself he'd get over it. Time passed, he didn't. So now, 2 years later, seeing her kneeling in the snow at the gate of that mansion, hair tangled, dress torn, cheeks hollowed by something harder than hunger, it didn't feel real. The lamps on the porch hadn't been lit yet. The sky was turning the color of dying embers, and Emma looked like a ghost stitched back into human form. "Emma," Samuel said softly, her head lifted with effort, as though she'd been waiting for that voice and didn't trust she'd really heard it. "Sam," her lips quivered. "Please don't walk away." He didn't come closer, didn't run either. He simply stood there, breath turning to frost. Inside the mansion, a door slammed. A man shouted. A woman cried. The walls kept secrets, but they weren't thick enough to hide the shape of fear. Emma flinched at the sound, her fingers digging into the iron bars. "I ain't asking you to love me again," she whispered. "I know I don't deserve that. But I'm asking you, begging you, please, take me out of here. Take me anywhere. Make me your wife if you have to, so he can't claim me no more." Snowflakes drifted between them. Horses snorted restlessly in the stable. The wind pulled at Samuel's coat, urging him forward or away. His jaw tightened. His heart hammered once, heavy and painful. Some decisions in the West weren't made with the head, and some weren't made with the heart. They were made with the part of a man that still remembered who he used to be. Samuel took one slow step toward the gate, then another dot, and another dot, until he stood close enough to see the bruise blooming beneath her eye. He didn't touch her, didn't speak, didn't promise anything, but the air between them thick and dangerous, rising, full of choices that couldn't be undone. Behind him, the last light of day faded. In front of him, Emma waited, broken, desperate, pleading for a salvation he wasn't sure he had the right to give. And somewhere inside that mansion, a threat was waking. The kind that didn't come quietly, the kind that didn't let go. The bruised sky deepened to violet as Samuel helped Emma to her feet. She swayed lightly, breath unsteady, like someone who'd been running for days without moving an inch. He wrapped his coat around her shoulders. She clutched it like a lifeline. Asterisk, can you walk? He asked. Asterisk, she nodded, but her knees betrayed her. Samuel steadied her, guiding her toward the road. The snow beneath their boots whispered under each step, a sound too soft for the storm brewing behind them. Asterisk, halfway down the path, a lantern flared from the mansion porch. Elias Whitlock's voice followed. Emma, get back here. Asterisk, Samuel stiffened. Emma flinched violently. Asterisk, Sam, she whispered, voice shaking, please don't leave me. Asterisk, he didn't, but his jaw worked in a slow, grinding motion as he turned his body slightly, hiding her behind him like he used to hide skittish calves from a storm. Asterisk, light from the lantern swung wildly as Elias stepped out. Still in his velvet evening coat, his hair was disheveled, his face flushed with fury and drink. Behind him, 2 ranch hands Whitlock men hovered like shadows, eager to be told who to hurt. Asterisk, you got a death wish, Hayes, Elias called out. That's my wife, you're stealing. Asterisk, Samuel didn't raise his voice, didn't puff his chest. Violence had never been his language. Asterisk, she came to me, he said. I didn't lay a hand on her. Asterisk, Elias scoffed. You think the town will believe that? A pause, then with a sneer. You think I'll let you walk off with something I paid for? Asterisk, Emma's breath shattered into a sob. Samuel felt it ripple through his back like an electric jolt. Asterisk, he turned just enough to meet her eyes. Asterisk, you ready to leave this place? He asked. Asterisk, her answer wasn't spoken, it was in the way she clung to his coat. Knuckles bone white. Samuel nodded once, then he guided her down the road, not running, but walking steadily like a man who'd already accepted whatever consequences. The night was writing for him. Asterisk, behind them, Elias shouted, threats, promises, orders, but he didn't follow, not yet. Asterisk, the ride back to town was slow, the cold biting through layers as Samuel settled Emma onto the wagon seat beside him. Lamplight from Copper Valley flickered faintly ahead, warm, familiar, and dangerous now in its own way. Asterisk, by the time they reached the saloon crossroads, Deputy Murdoch was standing outside the jail, hands stuffed in his coat pockets, breath rising like steam. He raised a brow at the sight of them. Asterisk, evenin', Sam. Everything all right? He asked. Samuel didn't answer fast enough. Emma answered first instead. Asterisk, no, she whispered, voice small but steady. I can't go back there. He'll kill me. Asterisk, the deputy blinked, caught between duty and a delicate truth he could feel unfolding but didn't know how to touch. Asterisk, is that true? He asked Samuel. Asterisk, Samuel nodded once. It's bad, Murdoch. Asterisk, bad enough that you're talking her off Whitlock property in the middle of the night. Samuel exhaled a long, hard breath. She asked for help, so I helped. Asterisk, the deputy shifted uneasily, eyes scanning the dark road behind them. Asterisk, you know Elias'll come into town raising hell by morning. Half the boarding houses won't take her in, not unless they want Whitlock trouble. Asterisk, I don't care about houses. Samuel said, she's coming to my ranch. Asterisk, Murdoch swallowed. That's mighty bold of you. Asterisk, a tremor of fear passed through Emma at those words, as if boldness was just another name for a death sentence, but Samuel didn't bend. He didn't withdraw. Asterisk, he stood beside her like a man deciding to take on someone else's burden. Asterisk, the deputy looked between them, then finally sighed. Asterisk, all right, I'll pretend I didn't see not, but be careful. Whitlock's not the kind to let a slight pass. Samuel tipped his hat. Appreciate it. They rode on. The ranch house came into view, just as the moon pushed through the clouds. Emma stared at it with something between wonder and despair. Asterisk, this place hasn't changed. She whispered. Asterisk, neither have you, he thought, but the words stayed inside. Asterisk, inside the cabin. The fire was low but warm. Samuel gave her his chair. She eased into it slowly, wincing at each movement. When he knelt to unlace her snow-wet boots, she gave a soft, ashamed sound. You don't have to do that, she murmured. I know, he replied. Her eyes glistened. Silence settled between them, fragile, full of things they hadn't said in 2 long years. Asterisk, then she spoke, voice trembling. Asterisk, I didn't come to you because I still love you. I mean, I do, but that's not why I ran. I came because you're the only person who ever treated me gentle even when I didn't treat you right. Asterisk Samuel stood slowly, the weight of her words sinking into his bones. Asterisk Emma, he said softly, you're safe here tonight. That's all that matters. Asterisk she nodded, lower lip trembling. Asterisk, but outside the cabin, out on the cold plains, a lantern bobbed through the darkness. Elias Whitlock had already sent out riders, and by dawn the whole valley would know Samuel Hayes had taken his wife. The wind changed sometime past midnight. Samuel felt it before he heard a thing, a drop in the temperature, a new heaviness in the air, a quiet no longer shaped by nightbirds or cattle shifting in the pasture, just cold, still, expectant. Asterisk he stepped out onto the porch, pulling his coat tight. The moon hung low and swollen above the valley, lighting the frost-silvered grass in a ghostly sheen. Nothing moved, nothing breathed. Yet Samuel felt eyes on the back of his neck. Asterisk Emma slept inside, curled near the fire he'd stoked twice already. Her cheeks were raw from crying. The bruise beneath her eye had darkened. She looked small again, like the girl he used to steady on horseback when she was too nervous to climb up alone. Asterisk he lifted his lantern, scanning the ridge. Asterisk that's when he saw it. A flicker, then another, far off tiny beads of orange weaving slowly across the black horizon. Riders. Asterisk 3, no, 4, maybe more. Asterisk Samuel's jaw clenched. Whitlock men didn't ride at this hour unless they were sent to deliver a message. Asterisk and this time, the message wasn't going to be written in words. Asterisk he went back inside long enough to grab his rifle from above the mantel. He didn't load it. Not yet. He had no desire to shoot anyone tonight. But it wasn't fear that guided his hands. It was preparation. The kind a man develops in this land, the kind that doesn't rely on luck or prayer. Emma stirred when the door creaked. Sam, her voice was hoarse. He knelt beside her, keeping his voice low and steady. We've got some company, Cumin. Don't panic. Asterisk she blinked, trying to sit up. The fire cast a soft glow over her face, illuminating the dried tear tracks on her cheeks. Asterisk is it him? She whispered. Asterisk I don't know yet. Asterisk yes, you do. Her voice cracked. I can hear it in the way you said company. He didn't argue. There wasn't time for comforting lies. Asterisk instead. He moved to the window and blew out the lanterns, leaving the room in the dim, pulsing orange of the hearth. Asterisk Sam. Her breath hitched. If he finds me here. Asterisk I know. Asterisk you'll lose everything. Asterisk I know that too. Asterisk and still you won't let me go. Asterisk Samuel turned his head slightly, enough for her to see the firm line of his jaw. Asterisk you didn't ask me to let you go, he said. You asked me to help. Asterisk her eyes softened, and for a moment the years melted off her face. But the world wouldn't give them long. Hoofbeats cracked through the night, slow at first, then growing rhythmic, deliberate, a sound that made even the fire seem quieter. Asterisk Emma rose to her feet on trembling legs. Samuel guided her gently behind the kitchen wall as the riders came into view. 2 in front, 3 behind. Asterisk, all carrying lanterns, all moving with purpose. When they reached the gate, they didn't dismount. They simply stopped, 5 silhouettes framed in brittle moonlight. Asterisk. Samuel stepped out onto the porch but stayed just beneath the shadow of the roof. He didn't raise the rifle, didn't move fast. The West had taught him that slow hands survived longer. Asterisk evening. One of the men called out. His voice was thick with tobacco and arrogance. Fine night for a visit. Samuel didn't respond. Another rider leaned forward, lantern swinging. We're looking for someone. Elias says his wife's run off. Heard she might have headed this direction. Samuel finally spoke. Why would she come here? Asterisk the men shared a crooked, knowing smirk. Asterisk because Elias says she used to have a soft spot for you. The first rider said. Says you used to follow her around like a lost pup. Samuel's throat tightened. He didn't rise to the bait. Asterisk, she ain't here. He said calmly. Asterisk the second rider laughed. Funny thing though, Elias says if she is here, he ain't interested in talking her back. Claims she belongs to him, and any man helping her is as guilty as she is. Samuel's hand tightened around the porch rail. We understood the meaning now. Asterisk, this wasn't a search party. This was a warning. One rider leaned forward until his lantern lit Samuel's boots. Asterisk, you got till sunrise, he said softly. If she's here, hand her over. If she ain't, we still expect a visit from you at the estate. Elias wants to talk man to man. Samuel kept his voice steady. And if I don't, The rider smiled a thin, wolfish thing. Then Elias Whitlock will call this trespass, and trespassers don't tend to live long. The 5 lanterns turned. The horses wheeled. The night swallowed them one by one. Samuel stayed on the porch, long after their hoofbeats faded. Inside, Emma slowly stepped into the orange glow of the fire, her face pale. "You can't protect me from him," she whispered. Samuel looked at her long, quiet, unblinking. "Maybe not," he said, "but I can damn sure try." Outside, the wind died completely. Even the night was holding its breath. Dawn crawled slowly over the rim of the valley, washing the world in that pale, bruised light that makes everything look fragile. The storm clouds had drifted east, leaving behind a thin layer of frost that glittered across the ranch like scattered glass. Samuel sat at the kitchen table, running a thumb along the edge of a tin cup he hadn't bothered to drink from. He'd been awake for hours, listening to the wind shift, listening for riders, listening for trouble. Emma stepped out from the bedroom doorway, wrapped in a wool blanket. Her hair fell in loose tangles round her face, but there was something clearer in her eyes this morning. Clarity, maybe, or desperation finally settling into truth. "You didn't sleep," she murmured. "Wasn't tired," he said softly. She pulled the blanket tighter. "Sam, what are we gonna do?" He didn't answer right away. The silence stretched long enough that she walked closer, lowering herself into the chair across from him. Her fingers trembled as she reached for the warmth of the cup he wasn't drinking from. He finally spoke. "Elias ain't letting this go. Riders last night, that was him giving me a chance to hand you over quietly. And you won't." Her voice held no doubt, just a quiet, worn-out ache. "No, I won't." Emma looked down at her hands. The wounds across her knuckles were raw, like she'd been clawing at something for too long. "What happened?" Samuel asked gently. "Between you and him." She swallowed hard, staring at the fire instead of him. "It didn't start bad. You know, Elias, charming when he wants to be. He made me feel like I could be someone important, someone more than the ranch girl who brought you biscuits that always fell apart." Samuel's jaw tightened, but not from anger at her. From the memory of what he'd lost, Emma continued, voice shaking. "But money, it does something to a man who thinks he deserves more than he has. First it was little rules, then it was orders, then punishments. I thought I could manage it. I told myself it wasn't that bad, that I chose this." Her eyes lifted slowly. "But then he stopped wanting a wife, started wanting property." Samuel's breath left him in a hard, painful exhale. She pressed the heel of her palm to her eyes. "I stayed too long, Sam. I didn't run when I should have. And now I've dragged you into his shadow." He reached across the table, slow as sunrise, and laid his hand over hers. "Emma, you didn't drag me nowhere. I stepped into this on my own 2 feet. Her breath caught. "Why?" The question wasn't small. It wasn't simple. It was 2 years of buried hope rising all at once. Samuel looked down at their joined hands, rough and soft, scarred and trembling. "Because you asked me," he said. "And because I couldn't let you face that man again. Not if you're begging in the snow for someone to save you. Not if it meant turning my back on who I was raised to be." Emma didn't speak, couldn't. The only sound was her breath hitching as tears formed again, quieter this time, as if she wasn't crying from fear anymore, but something deeper. Then she stood. She walked across the room slowly, as though each step required a decision. When she reached the mantel, she stopped. Her gaze fell on a small tintype resting there, Samuel and his father, years ago, both unsmiling, both unpolished. She touched the frame gently. "You always lived honest," she whispered. "You always lived in truth, and I traded that for silk I never wanted." Samuel rose from his chair. Emma turned, the blanket slipping off her shoulders as she faced him fully. "Sam, I don't know if you'll ever love me again. I don't know if I deserve that. But I want you to know why I came to you." He waited, heart tight, breath still. "It wasn't just fear," she said. "It was trust. You were the last good thing I ever knew. And when everything inside me broke, that's where I ran." She stepped closer. "I didn't ask you to make me your wife to trap you," she whispered. "I asked because it was the only way he couldn't take me back. Not unless he killed you first." The truth hung heavy in the air. Samuel didn't flinch. He didn't step back. Instead, He reached up and brushed a strand of hair from her face, a touch so gentle she closed her eyes. When she opened them again, something had shifted. Fear still lived there. Yes, but so did certainty. A sudden crack echoed. Outside, not thunder, not a falling branch. A rifle being chambered. Samuel's hand dropped instantly, glanced toward the window. Emma's breath stilled. The human connection between them, fragile and new, evaporated under the cold bite of danger. They're here, Samuel whispered. And this time, Emma breathed. They're not coming to talk. The sun had barely crested the hills when the first shadows appeared on the frost-bitten ridge. Dark figures on horseback, moving with a slow, merciless certainty. Their rifles glinted in the weak morning light. Breath clouds drifted from the horses' nostrils like smoke from a coming fire. Samuel and Emma stood at the window of the cabin, shoulders almost touching but not quite. They didn't need to speak to understand the same truth. This was the moment everything had been building toward. Emma whispered. He brought all of them. Samuel felt her trembling and placed a steadying hand on the table beside her, not touching her, just anchoring both of them to something solid. Elias don't like loose ends. A horse broke from the line and trotted ahead. Elias Whitlock himself, velvet coat, gloves, clean boots, a man prepared for victory, not a fight. In his right hand, he held a folded slip of paper. In his left, a silver-topped cane. He always arrived dressed like a man playing a part. Samuel stepped outside before Elias reached the porch. He made sure he closed the door behind him gently, quietly, like he didn't want to disturb someone sleeping. It was a small gesture, but Emma saw it from the window, and she understood. Elias reined in a few paces from the porch, eyes narrowing with a cold, calculating satisfaction. Morning, Hayes, he said. Stubborn night for you, I imagine. Samuel didn't blink. Could say the same. Elias smiled thinly. I gave you a chance, a simple one. Bring her home, and all of this could have been settled as men do with negotiation. Samuel let that hang in the cold. Negotiation ain't what you want. No, Elias admitted. What I want is order, my property where it belongs. Inside the cabin, Emma bit her knuckle to stop herself from crying out. Samuel's jaw tightened. She ain't property. Elias tilted his head, studying him like a man might study a stubborn animal. You think love gives you some claim to her, some moral high ground. Don't be naive, Sam. You always were simple but not stupid. He unfolded the slip of paper, held it out between two fingers. A warrant, he said, signed by the territorial judge, states, you abducted my wife in the night, against her will. Samuel didn't move, didn't take it, didn't break eye contact. If you think I'm letting you walk back into town with her after what you did, what she did, Samuel corrected softly. Elias's smile faded. You think she'd say that under oath, when the judge asks her? You think she'll risk her neck? You know her, Sam, she folds, always has. Those words hit Samuel harder than any gunshot could. He knew what Elias was doing. He also knew Elias wasn't entirely. Roma had lived under fear long enough that she might crumble under the wrong pressure. But Samuel said nothing. And silence, to Elias, was victory. He lowered the warrant. Give her to me. Right now. Let her walk to my horse of her own accord, and I swear on my father's grave, I will not harm you. Samuel breathed once, deep and steady. No, he said. Elias blinked. No, not giving her back. Elias's jaw clenched. Then you're choosing death. Not today, I'm not. They stared at each other, two men with nothing left to say. Then the cabin door opened. Emma stepped out, blankets still around her shoulders, breath sharp in the cold morning air. Samuel spun. Stay inside. Nook. Her voice was fragile but clear. I have to speak. Elias smiled instantly, assuming victory. There she is. Emma, darling, come home. She walked forward until she stood between both men, trembling from cold or fear or both. Samuel watched her like a man witnessing a miracle and a tragedy at once. Emma spoke softly, but her words carried across the frost like a blade. I'm not going back. Elias, Froze. You hurt me, she said. You broke things in me. No woman should have to hide. And I let you because I thought I deserved nothing better, but I'm done being quiet. Elias opened his mouth, but she raised a hand, something she'd never dared before. And if you touch him, she said, voice shaking but firm, I will stand in court and tell them everything. Every bruise, every threat, every night you locked me in the room with the windows boarded. A hiss passed through the riders behind Elias, whispers discomfort. Emma wasn't finished. I'm not property, she whispered, and I'm not your wife in anything but name. You lost me long before I ran. Elias stared at her, face unreadable. Then something changed in his eyes, not rage, not shame, but fear. Real fear. The kind that comes when a man realizes he may not control the story anymore. He slowly turned his horse. We're done here, he said coldly. What about your warrant? One rider asked. Elias didn't look back. Burn it. The riders followed their master, disappearing one by one over the ridge, leaving the valley quiet again. Emma's knees buckled as soon as they were gone. Samuel caught her before she hit the ground. I thought he'd kill us, she whispered into his chest. He wanted a win, Samuel murmured. You made sure he didn't get it. She looked up at him, eyes full not of fear now, but something like hope. Sam, what happens now? He brushed a tear from her cheek. Whatever life looks like without chains, he said. We'll figure it out, one sunrise at a time. The frost melted slowly around them as the morning warmed, and for the first time in years, Emma felt like she could breathe. And Samuel, steady. Samuel finally allowed himself to believe that sometimes the West gave second chances. Even to hearts that had been broken twice.